Hello everybody, I'm Evian. We are doing a how to make a Stardew Valley mod using my garden cottage mod as we go along. Today we're going to talk about recipes and how to make a recipe for your mod should you want to. We're going to need a couple things. We're going to need our sprites. So in this case, the recipes I'm adding are going to be for orange juice, a strawberry salsa, and a grilled peach. And these are all foods that I want to be sold at a stall for the balloon festival that I'm putting into my mod. We're going to want our objects JSON or recipes JSON, basically a spot in your file where you will be putting all your recipes. And then if you have a translation file, you're going to want that open as well because you're going to want to be able to put your strings and titles in. I also recommend having, start with this, the Wiki's modding recipe data page open, and I'm going to put a link for this in the description. This has got all your fields, the table with what is what. This also talks about how to make a crafting recipe as well, which is very, very similar to a food recipe. I'm doing a cooking recipe. So the main difference is that you don't have this big craftable field here, but otherwise it's very, very similar. And then the other thing I like to do, and I'll put a link for this as well, but you can find it by Googling Stardew Valley Vanilla IDs. This is a chart created on GitHub by Mateus Aquino. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name. It is a fantastical, wonderful, amazing chart where it's got all of the items and their IDs. And what we want is we want to be looking at the basic items because when you make a recipe, you're turning these basic items into something else. So I'm going to be referencing this as we make our recipe. So I've got our page up. I'm zoomed in. I hope you all can see it. Let me just get word wrap on there. View word wrap. There we go. All right, so when you set up your recipes section on your JSON, it's going to go under your standard changes field, just like we always do. And then you're going to start your section with the double curly bracket. I have put my recipes and my objects in the same JSON file. Do whatever helps you keep organized, but I did this for me because I know it's all in the same place and it makes it easy for me to look. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the open and close curly bracket. We're going to set up a log name, just like I always do, because if you get an error code, you're going to get that log name. It's going to make it easy to find. We're going to do action edit data, which is fairly standard, as you've probably seen by now. And then the target, which is going to be the different spot, is going to be target data/cooking recipes. Cooking recipes is all one word with a capital C and a capital R. And again, don't forget your commas at the end of each of these. The next thing you're going to do is your entries field, followed by two open and closed curly bracket. So an open here and a closed one, and all of your entries are going to go in there. And now we can start filling out the slots for our curly brackets. So I'm doing 3 recipes. So I'm going to start with a set of quotes, a colon, a space, a secondary set of quotes, and a comma. I'm going to do that for all 3. And you can see VS Code is telling me that that's not valid because it's a duplication. But once we add our item names in, that will go away. Now, what you need is a unique string ID for each of your recipes. This is going to be what the game looks at when it pulls the information. So it's not your display name, it's just what string is the game looking for when it pulls the information for your recipe. So I like to use the mod ID token because I know that nobody else is going to be having the same, or they shouldn't have the same mod ID because that should be unique for your mod. And if somebody else has my same mod ID, then there's something happened somewhere that nobody was anticipating. And then I like to do an underscore after the mod ID. And then I'm going to type in a name for it. So for example, for my orange juice, I'm going to call it mod ID underscore fresh OJ. And then for my strawberry salsa, and you can see that orange squiggle is going away because they're no longer identical. Grilled peach. So now we have a unique string ID for each of our recipes. The next bit is the very first thing you want for your recipe is what items combine to make your recipe. Are you taking bread and cheese and making a grilled sandwich? What are you doing? So in my case, for the orange, all I need is an orange, and you can turn it into orange juice. So I'm going to go over here to my item chart, do a quick search for orange. So a classic orange is item 635. So I'm going to put that 635 in, a space, and we just need one orange. And that is the beginning of that field. So for a grilled peach, I want peaches and honey. So a peach is 636. And I want one. And then my honey is number 340. So we'll do a space, 340, and a 1. So it's going to take one peach, one jar of honey. And strawberry salsa, I know I also want honey, so we're going to do 340, a 1. Oh, that's an entirely different thing. Just 340, 1. I want a strawberry, a pepper, vinegar, 400 on the strawberry, 260 on the pepper, let's get a spring onion in there. Oops. Okay. Spring onion is $3.99. And I actually have a recipe for strawberry salsa opened up here that I'm referencing. If I can just get it to open and make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Honey or syrup. Stardew vanilla doesn't have salt. Does have, let's do more than one strawberry. Does have onion. So we're going to add vinegar in there, and we're going to add an extra strawberry. Because I don't have lemon or lime juice. Vinegar, $4.19. So I'm going to use vinegar instead. And as much as I can, I like my recipes to mirror actual recipes, but it's a game and not real life. So if it's slightly off, nobody's going to actually eat it. So I'm not terribly worried. $4.19. And 1. So I want more than one strawberry to balance out all these ingredients. So 400 was my strawberry. I'm going to change this 1 because that is our quantity. We're going to change it to 3. We're going to say it's 3 strawberries to everything else. And then we're going to put this dash. So now we can go look at our chart in our wiki page to see what the next in the list is. So let's see. The next field is unused, which is why I couldn't remember what it was. So we're just going to do the 25.5, which looks like it's this unused default right here. So in 25.5, I'm just going to copy that actually, make sure. And each field is separated by this backslash. So we'll do our ingredients, the unused 25.5 field, whatever that means. And then our next one is yield. So this is how many and what is being created by this recipe. So in this case, what we're going to put in here is our object name, which we went over objects in one of my earlier videos. So I've already put my objects in here. So this is also why I keep everything on the same JSON file. But if you don't do that, you're going to want your objects file open. So I'm going to scroll down to where I have my strawberry salsa and my orange juice and everything set. So I'm going to just copy that because it's got to be exactly the same as what you set in your objects field. Strawberry salsa. There's my OJ. And a backslash to close that. And grilled peaches, here we are. Copy that item name there. And we've got grilled peach and the backslash. Our next field, if this would stay open, is it's not big craftable because we're doing a cooking recipe as opposed to a crafting recipe. If you have a crafting recipe, you're going to have 5 slots instead of 4, and you would do this section true, false if it's a big or a standard, true if it's a big one, I think false if it's standard. I've not actually made a crafting recipe, just cooking recipes so far. But for our cooking recipe, we're skipping this entirely and we're going to this unlock condition. Now, if you're doing a friendship, like you reach your friendship level with your NPC and it automatically sends you the recipe, that is what you put here. So if you look at here where it says F Emily 3, that means if this was in that spot, if you had friendship with Emily at 3 hearts, she will automatically send you the recipe. Or for example, farming level 2. That is where you put those tags. For me, however, because I want my recipe to be either done with a specific trigger action or purchased from a shop, what I'm going to put on my recipes is null. And then in my shop, when I make my shop, I will include the recipe information there, and then it's purchasable. So what I want is I'm going to set this field as null. So I'm just going to I did it right here. So I'm just going to copy that. Null means none, basically. And it just says nothing here to look at. Move on to the next field. And our next field is our display name. So this is the string. This is why I say if you have a translation file up, that you're going to want to make sure you're ready to type in your string name. And this, if you don't have a translation file, you would just type what you want. Because I do have a translation file, and I set it for my objects previously. I'm going to just close that because I don't need it at the moment. When you set your objects up, you'll need this. Here we are. So when I was setting up my objects, I already made this string name. And because of that, and because it's going to be exactly the same as the one in my objects field, I can reuse this string as my name for my recipe. So we're going to do the double curly bracket, open and close. Always open and close your bracket. For a translation file, it's I I18N colon, oh, I, not O. Watch me make a mistake right in front of you. I18N colon, and then your string name, which I'm just copying over because I've already put it in here. Strawberry salsa. I18N food name. I18N and the colon, and then paste that in. So once this is in, that is basically inputting your recipe. And then your next step is to make your objects for your recipe. So like your plate with your Sprite and everything shows up once the recipe is made. And that you do just like we did the objects in the previous video, where you have your mod ID, your name, your display name, your description, your cooking, buffs, price, edibility, all of that you set for your recipe, just like you do for any other object. So in my case, we were talking about context tags last time. Strawberry salsa, it's sweet, spicy, it's a party food, it's the red at the dye pots. My Sprite index texture is 13. And actually, one thing I did learn when I was testing my balloon animals is you might want to do just 1.3 instead of 0.13, because when I did 0.8, it got mad at me, but it took 13 just fine. So if you see an error on this, you might just need to remove or add a 0 at the beginning and see if it gets mad next time. So that is it. That is the basics of adding a recipe. I hope it was helpful, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.